This is the Northwood Report on ESPN WestPalm.com, taking you through everything that is Seahawks sports. Now, here's Jeremy Marks-Peltz.
And welcome to the first edition of the Northwood Report here on ESPN WestPalm.com. Exclusively, every month, you will get the best of what's going on with the Northwood Seahawks. We're talking basketball, soccer, volleyball, you name it. If it's Northwood sports, we are on it here on ESPN Jeremy Marks-Peltz, JMP, with you, and pleased to be joined. My guest here in studio, and you'll hear him a lot throughout the course of these podcasts, Chris Kendrick, who, I could sit here and probably rattle off, your bio, but I will say you are the jack of all trades with Northwood, and leave it at that, and leave it for you to go ahead and fill in the gaps. So let's start there. Who is Chris Kendrick?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Jeremy. I am sort of that Northwood Swiss Army knife, you say, where I can bring a lot to the table.
I like that, Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, thank you. This is my first, entering my second year at Northwood, just finished up my first year. I got my undergrad degree from the University of Montana in communications, got my master's degree in business administration from UMass Dartmouth. That's where I spent 2 years as a sports information graduate assistant, and now I'm at Northwood as a SID, but like I said, also serving as sort of our media relations guy, our marketing, do a lot of our website stuff as well. So, like I said, sort of that Northwood Swiss Army knife.
So what is that experience like just day in and day out at Northwood, which, of course, West Palm Beach, a big-time program, number of different sports, and NAIA. But what's it like working at Northwood?
It's great. I love working at Northwood. It was a great school to start at. Not a lot going on. At UMass Dartmouth, where I was a GA, we had 23 sports. So as an assistant, I was doing a lot. But now at Northwood University, we're growing our program, but starting out with 11 varsity sports, now expanding to 16. So it was a good foundation for me to get started in sports information. But you can't really plan your day as a sports information director. You have a few things you got to do, but someone's always coming in your door. Coaches need something, so you really got to be loose with your schedule.
And you are the Northwood aficionado. Is it fair to say, is there anybody else in the world that knows as much about Northwood athletics as you?
I'm sure there's a couple people out there just in the history of Northwood, but in my year at Northwood, I've tried to learn as much as I can about the program and sort of become that statistician
there
here
you
at
go.
Northwood.
You could be our Northwood encyclopedia. Northwood Report, Jeremy Marks-Peltz, Chris Kendrick. So it is late November going on early October here on ESPNWestPalm.com, so it means the fall sports are now in session. One of those fall sports is women's soccer. Northwood, year in and year out, have big-time teams, currently number 5 in the nation, and this number pops out. When you think about soccer matches, Chris, you think, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2.
Yeah, a lot of those low-scoring kind of, baseball-type scores. Close games, but, not a lot of scoring with that huge field.
Sure, and it's the type of thing that can turn some people off. It's just certain people are big-time soccer fans, others not so much. How about victory over Southeastern University on Thursday? How about 11 goals?
I know. Coach Dunn does a great job of putting together a solid squad here at Northwood. Last year they'd faced Chowan University in North Carolina, scored 14 goals. So this Northwood University squad, you expect those low-scoring games, but they'll deliver something else. They have quite the eclectic group, a lot of international students who also have a lot of experience overseas playing. So they bring a lot to the table, a lot of experience.
So 11 goals is not even a record for this team?
Nah, as far as I know, 14 is the max, which was set last year at Chowan.
My goodness. Now, is the women's soccer game, and I know you said Northwood's normally a lower scoring team, or normally accustomed to low scoring matches, but is the college game in general, for those that are not familiar, is it more up tempo and higher scoring than say what you get if you watch, World Cup matches, or you watch the Premier League, or, whatever it is you watch?
I think a lot of people can be surprised by the game at the college level. It is have a lot of that higher tempo kind of World Cup aspects to it, because you have that diverse base of a lot of international kids at this level. So overseas, soccer is a huge thing for them, so they, may have not had the opportunities or the background in their family to get to those bigger programs, but they still bring that passion at the NAIA level. So you can be surprised with how the kids play, and, it's quite a good game to watch.
Yeah, 11-1 in the opener over Southeastern University. As far as the Sun Conference schedule goes, Louise Anderson had 3 straight goals to start. Mm-hmm. Joanna Enberg, 4 goals overall. Is there a go-to person on this team, or are we going to be mentioning Louise Anderson and Joanna Enberg as among the highest goal scorers in the country, or is there someone else that we should be recognizing here?
Well, first let's say Louise and Joanne have done great this year. Louise is a sophomore, so she's really stepped up her game from that freshman to sophomore level, and Joanne as a freshman coming in, she's performed tremendously in that role, just coming in, adapting that collegiate level. But one player not mentioning is Helen Linsky. She's our senior forward, is a 3-time Sun Conference Player of the Year. She had 3 goals and 4 assists last night.
Wow. Yeah, we probably should mention her.
Yeah, she's in the top 10 in scoring and assists. She's Northwood's all-time leading goal scorer. She has 78 goals in 3 years, not including the 7 she's added this year, along with 203 points. So, she's definitely the main workhorse on this Seahawks offense. And now that she has these additions of Louise Anderson, Joanne Enberg, she's able to kind of not have to be that main focal point. She's able to be more the distributor and leader of that offense, but she also does have the capability to step up and take a game over.
So what's next then after Northwood for a girl like Heather, who 3-time Sun Conference Player of the Year? You mentioned just soccer seems to come easy for her. Does she have career aspirations to play the sport after college?
Sure. Helen comes over from the UK, and she did play with the Gulf Coast Texans of the women's, I believe it's Premier Soccer League, the WPSL, along with our goalkeeper, Matilda Ojiniemi. Mm-hmm. They're both NAI All-Americans, great players. So they had that opportunity to get some professional experience during the summer. I'm not sure exactly how the road is to get to that next level and what the areas are, but they've already, tapped into that WPSL source, so I'm sure they can go right back to that if they want for future years to come.
And then looking forward to what's on tap for the Northwood Seahawks soccer team, again, number 5 in the nation. I understand the biggest matchup of the season comes your way October 11th, Embry-Riddle, which is actually ranked higher than they are in the polls. They're number 2 right now. How big is this matchup in terms of conference rivalries?
Our matchups, whenever it comes to any sport, is always big against Embry-Riddle. They're our conference rival. They're a program who's been in the conference for a while, a big developed program, and Northwood wants to be on their level. So we know when we play them, it's always a big game. And like you said, our October 11th matchup, we're heading up to Daytona. It's a big matchup. Last year they decided to split the Sun Conference into 2 divisions. Mm-hmm. So now pretty much Embry-Riddle is the top of the North Division, Northwood is the top of the South Division. So last year they played twice, once during the regular season, and Northwood was able to get a 1-0 victory in overtime. And then again, they played for the regular season championship at Northwood, and Northwood was able to again get a 2-1 overtime victory in that game. So they're really high energy contests, and it's always a real good battle when they play. So heading up to Embry this time, it's going to be an enemy territory. It's going to be a big game for the Seahawks, especially coming in with that number 5 rank, which is the highest rank they've had in program history. And Embry-Riddle being number 2, that's huge. No other conference, I believe, has 2 schools in the top 5 like that. So it's definitely probably going to be the NAIA matchup of the week as well.
Yeah, huge matchup, 2 top 5 teams, and we would expect that it would stay that way, and that's coming your way October 11th. But great things going on for the soccer squad right now. All right, we move on to the hardwood. I know that there are probably people tuned in that are very antsy to hear about men's basketball, and we have an exciting announcement too about ESPN West Palm and men's basketball, which if you haven't already heard, we will have that for you in just a couple minutes. A little tease here on the Northwood Report. But I want to focus on women's basketball here for a second, and we're with Chris Kendrick, because there has been a change at the coaching position. Mark Sanford, who I've gotten a chance to be friendly with the last couple of years, did a nice job with his team, and got an opportunity to go to the Memphis Grizzlies. So Mark is gone, but I got to think that there is everybody that is a Lady Northhawks fan has got to be excited about who has taken over and the pedigree of the coach that's taken over.
Yeah, Jeremy. We appreciate everything that Coach Sanford brought to the program. He was very instrumental in helping establish that women's basketball program, and now he's obviously gone on to better things. Now moving on to the NBA and becoming a video coordinator with the Memphis Grizzlies. So we'd like to wish him the best of luck in his future endeavor. But now moving on, Northwood has hired former Tennessee University standout Courtney McDaniel as our new head coach. So, she brings a lot to the table. She was a former USA, Adidas, and Nike All-American at Tennessee High School. She was selected as a USA Today Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Tennessee after her senior season. And then she was, of course, a 4-year player at Tennessee, playing for a coaching icon in Pat Summitt. So learning from a coach like Pat Summitt and having that playing experience, you got to think Coach McDaniel, being in her first collegiate coaching experience right now, has to bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, and, I got to think, if you're going into a living room and you're trying to recruit players, and you've got a school, maybe not everyone's familiar with Northwood University, although I think, many more will be with, the success that Courtney McDaniel is hopefully going to bring to this program. But, you have someone that played for, one of the top 2 women's basketball coaches of all time, maybe the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. I got to think that's going to draw a lot of kids.
Yeah, I mean, she was in Tennessee in those days of battling with UConn, those 2 high-profile programs, Oriema against Pat Summitt. Coach McDaniel was right in the thick of it. And you got to think, when you can walk into a player's living room and say, hey, I got Pat Summitt on speed dial, you got to think that's a bonus when you're recruiting a player.
Now, how would you characterize Coach McDaniel? Have you gotten a chance to know her really that well? I know she was known in college as someone that was scrappy and did a lot of the little things. Is she that way? Is that going to be the mindset of her team?
Yeah, I've gotten to know Coach McDaniel over the last couple of weeks. She's actually shares the office across from me, and I've been able to answer some questions from her in the early get-go. And like you said, she was that scrappy, tenacious player on the floor, earned the name Minute Maid from her fans, because one game she averaged 13 rebounds, I think, in 14 minutes, or 14 and 13, something along that line. So, she's more quiet, reserved in the normal day-to-day life, but I think once you get her on the court and get her in the game, you'll see that passion come out and that fire. And I've been able to see a couple practices, and she's got the girls doing a lot of things that I haven't seen before. Some drills involving tennis balls and bouncing one in one hand and got the other one. So she's, working these girls very hard and making sure she puts together a solid squad for this upcoming season.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Coach McDaniel, Courtney McDaniel, former Tennessee standout, played for Pat Summitt, taking over the women's basketball program at Northwood. All right, we're going to take a time out here on the Northwood Report. When we come back, we will dive into men's basketball. We got some alumni news. We got some news involving ESPN West Palm, and of course, we're going to talk about what to expect from the Northwood Hawks this upcoming season. Stay with us, Northwood Report here on ESPNWestPalm.com. All right, welcome back to the Northwood Report on ESPNWestPalm.com. It is our monthly look at inside Northwood athletics. Jeremy Marks-Peltz and Chris Kendrick, who is the Northwood Swiss Army Knife Sports Information Director, handles the website, does a little bit of everything.
Going to have to change that, get a little desk plate that says that now.
You should. Do they have that in the budget that they can...
I'll have to talk to our AD, see if I can swing it.
I know. See, I think Nick can probably get you something that looks pretty cool. So we talked about the soccer squad, number 5 in the nation, coming off an 11-goal performance, and as well the new coach in women's basketball, Courtney McDaniel, played for Pat Summitt at Tennessee, and you can go to the beginning of the podcast, ESPNWestPalm.com, to get that information. But let's get to men's basketball, and we'll start with a little self-promotion here. We are excited at ESPN West Palm, and me personally, because we are going to be calling all of the Northwood home men's basketball games this year on ESPNWestPalm.com. Myself will be handling the play-by-play, so excited to see this team up close and personal. Excited to get a chance to hang out with Rolly Massimino a little bit. So we are pumped for that, and I hope everybody's pumped that we're going to be bringing you more Northwood Seahawks men's basketball here on ESPNWestPalm.com.
Yeah, no, we're definitely excited at Northwood to have this partnership with ESPN moving forward. I know that you guys have a quality product, and I think we'll bring a quality product as far as the sports field, and hopefully this West Palm Beach community can enjoy themselves. As we talked about, this women's soccer program's doing some big things, and as now we move into men's basketball, it's always a popular thing down here in West Palm Beach, and men's basketball looking good now to start out this season.
Yeah, Chris, it's always a quality product with men's basketball. They've won championships before in NAIA Division II, 30-4 last year, and ended up being ranked 6th in the postseason poll. But is this a squad that comes back with a little bit of a chip on its shoulder because of the fact that, the early loss in the first round of the tournament? And I got to imagine number 1 in the preseason polls last year that, maybe it wasn't tight the end of the year that Northwood and Coach Massimino would have liked.
Yeah, definitely the end to last season wasn't what we were all hoping for, especially moving into the tournament. Like you said, we had our most successful regular season, posting that 30-4 record. Had our best conference season as well. So moving forward, it was just, we thought moving into the tournament that it was going to be, hopefully coming off that Final Four appearance and the championship game appearance, that this was the year that Northwood could finally grab that banner. But unfortunately, things didn't plan out the way that we were hoping for. But, like you mentioned, this team could come back with a chip on their shoulder. The only issue is that we have 4 players from last year's team, with a lot of our seniors being, a lot of that nucleus of last year's squad, a lot of them graduating, moving on, playing overseas, something that maybe we'll get into later in the podcast down the road. But now coming back with only 4 players from last year, you got to think that they can maybe wipe the slate clean, forget about last year, start out fresh this year, and move forward and hopefully get another 8th consecutive appearance in the NAIA tournament.
Yeah, and you've got, like you mentioned, young team with Tyrone Davis, who we'll get to in a second. He's gone. Other prominent players are gone, but it's just exciting start. I followed the program on Twitter, and it seems like everyone's excited and everyone likes what they've seen from the first few days of practice.
Yeah, I was able to get out there, and a lot of these players are new. The makeup of this unit is a lot of junior college players, a lot of freshmen. So they got to kind of get that familiarity on the court with one another, especially coming from all over the country, basically. So a lot of the first practices are, getting that chemistry built, a lot of that communication on the floor, making sure the players are, in flow with one another.
Mm-hmm. Who is going to be, if you had to take a guess, I know it's a young team, so it may take a while to figure out, but is there a go-to player or players on this team that we should mention?
We have a couple significant players that were at the JUCO level, one of them being Chris Solomon. He's a wing player, an outside shooter. Look for him to kind of be that player that they can go to outside when they need, points in bunches. Then we have some players down low. We got Fred Madison and Stephon Smith. Fred comes from Mott Community College, a successful JUCO program. Stephon comes from San Jose State, NCAA D1 program, and they're big guys down low. And down in pretty much in the Sun Conference, you got to have that point guard and you got to have that big man. So hopefully we can, have the big men in Stephon, along with Fred, Chris Lee, some big players down low. And then we got to figure out who from the freshmen are going to be that point guard, whether it's going to be a Josh Dowdy, whether you have Gerard Owens, who's returning from last year's squad, ready to take the helm. So it's going to be interesting to see what the makeup of the starting 5 will be.
Yeah, so excited about basketball as they continue practice when we get closer to the start of the regular season. Let's hit on Tyrone Davis, who was a standout for Northwood the last couple of years. He signed with the Harlem Globetrotters, and, he was drafted by the Harlem Globetrotters. Not everybody who gets drafted by the Harlem Globetrotters signs with the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm going to take a guess that Mariano Rivera, who was signed in that draft class, probably won't be joining anytime soon, but it looks like Tyrone Davis is going to have a future with the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, there were some strange names in that draft class. We saw Brittany Griner along with Mariano Rivera, who have all done other things at the professional level, and we weren't expecting to see from the Globetrotters, though Rivera's pretty much done with baseball, so, maybe we will see him with the Globetrotters. But as far as when it comes to Tyrone, he was able to, get this great opportunity. He went to training camp, did what he wanted to do. Ty was always telling me he has to go over there, and he had to, in his terms, kill it. So that's what he did. He was able to take that trip to New Jersey, performed up to his level, and showed the Globetrotters what he could do. And at Northwood, he had a great 4-year run. He was the program's all-time leader in assists, steals, games played. And, he fought through a lot of adversity in his life to get to this point. So it's really a great honor for Ty to, be able to get this honor in his career, to be able to play with a team like the Globetrotters, who are pretty much world known.
Sure.
So to be able to bring his game to that level, but also represent Northwood at that pretty much worldwide level, it's very good for him and the program.
Yeah, so we'll be watching, and I'm sure hearing a lot more about Tyrone Davis, and we'll talk about him more on future episodes of the Northwood Report. All right, wrapping it up, let's just mention volleyball and men's and women's tennis real quickly, and what each of those squads are up to.
Well, we got our men's and women's tennis squads. They both were NAIA tournament teams last year. The women's squad advanced all the way to the Elite 8. And they returned a lot of their squad this year. They're up in Daytona Beach participating in the USTA ITA regionals right now in singles and doubles competition. So you can always follow all that information by going to the Seahawks athletic webpage at seahawks.gonorthwood.com. provide all our updates as long as recaps, all our schedules up there. Then as far as volleyball has a big conference game tonight against St. Thomas at the Countess de Horn Lake Student Life Center, so if you're available, come on down and check it out. But they're also entering that midst of that conference play, so they're going to kind of show what they can do. They also lost a lot of players from last year and bringing back a bigger, more athletic squad. We can see the numbers just drastically different from this year. So, moving forward, volleyball, they have a tournament at the first weekend of October, so we'd like everyone to come out and check it out. We got some good volleyball, and I think is that Chris Weidman outside right now? So I think
Chris Weidman is waiting.
Yeah, I don't want to.
We'll have an octagon throw down to use the studio.
That would be Chris, way to end this one here.
Chris Kendrick, always appreciate it. And real quickly, give a plug to, obviously, Northwood Report's going to be every month. We got the men's basketball on ESPNWestPalm.com. But how else can people get information on the web, on social media about Northwood Athletics?
Yeah, like I said, you can always visit the Seahawks official athletic website at seahawks.gonorthwood.com. But Seahawks are also active all the time on Facebook and Twitter. Our Facebook is facebook.com/NU Seahawks. And our Twitter is twitter.com/NU Seahawks or at NU Seahawks. And I'll give myself a plug. I'm Chris C. Kendrick 86 on Twitter.
There you go. For Chris Kendrick, I'm Jeremy Marks-Peltz. This has been the Northwood Report on ESPNWestPalm.com.